last time we spoke to you, you had just retired. That was a little while ago now. So while you were then at Bristol, what did you learn in terms of like a player development side of things? You know, you've been involved in a number of different areas. I'd love to know how you're getting on there, and I guess starting with Bristol, the kind of things you took away from that position.
Yeah, I think my experience at Bristol City was very similar to the likes of the teams we're talking about in terms of Nottingham Forest, Stoke, you know, teams that want to get promoted into the next division, work hard to sort of be able to do that, to set the foundations. I was very fortunate to experience a really great working staff group with accessibility to the club's facilities that allowed the players to feel valued fundamentally. And from a pathway perspective and developing players, I learned a lot about, you know, individual programs and how we can support them in all areas from a psychological to physiological perspective, and how as coaches as well, we can develop our own kind of understanding of what these players are facing today. What are today's challenges? What is the world that they live in terms of the pressure, the expectation, the added visibility with the growth of the game? So it was a really good experience for me going into my England women's under-23 role, working with the team there and cultivating and helping them shape kind of their journeys to keep reaching sort of their own personal ambitions as well.
I guess as well in a club like Bristol City where, you know, wanting to fight for promotion or staying up, you know, there's got a real ambition there and a real goal, while balancing the fact that you're bringing through young players who all want to play and all have the ambition to play at the top level. I guess that's a really great place to learn that lesson around player development, because you have to manage the goals of the club but also manage the expectations of the players at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, during my time at Bristol, we had a very young squad in general. So we had the opportunity to field a lot of young players and give them, I think, early exposure and experiences of playing sort of elite end football. But that's testament and credit to also, you know, Lauren Smith, who was the coach, because she really believed in it and believed in that model and believed in trying to develop players. And I think you need like-minded people around you that see the potential of those players, knowing that you don't always get the outcomes you want, because it is about developing individuals as well as the team whilst trying to reach the collective goals of the team. But you don't get that if you don't bring everybody along on the journey. So you need the buy-in of all the players. You need them to understand where we were at as a club. They understood the wider ambition. The ambition was to get promoted, but they also recognized that there were times where certain players will play, right? And we had to make sure that they are managed well and looked after as well from a physical and mental perspective. But I must say, during my time at Bristol, there were other challenges off the field, you know, personal challenges for individuals. But the way the group stuck together was super important.
Yeah, I think as well that it's something that you see right across the game, whether you're, you know, fighting to get promoted up into the top league, whether you're fighting relegation, whether you're top the table with all the resources you need, you still need to be able to manage player expectations and club expectations. And I guess it's a good lesson to learn early on in your career. And I guess Bristol City kind of sets you up nicely for working now with England under-23s and that talent pathway. And it's become such a vital cog in the wider growth of the Lionesses and the younger Lionesses. It's become such a valuable piece in that pathway. How have you found working there?
So far, it's been an amazing experience to work with Emma Coates, the head coach, and Gemma Davies, who I already knew quite well from obviously my time at Aston Villa. I think what it does is, as you said, it links the pathway, the England pathway from the youth teams all the way through to the senior level. We work really hard to be closely aligned to Serena and her team and sort of the senior Lionesses and all the kind of long-term goals for the national team program as well, for all the cycle of competitions. Obviously the Euros are coming up, you've got World Cup beyond that. So for these 23s, they can see ahead to where they could potentially be at. And it's our job to make sure that they have the opportunity to realize that, right? So by developing them, by being really reflective, by giving them the tools as well to steer their own kind of journeys. They have it's very collaborative in terms of their own individual programs, and how they can keep developing and where they want to be in terms of the next cycle as well.
It feels like you could feel really part of this ultimate success of the senior team, because the door is always open. And I think when you look across the board at teams that are improving, like national teams that are improving, a lot of them have under 23s teams, and you're realizing how vital that is to the success of the senior team. And maybe the teams that are struggling to bridge that gap don't have that natural pathway. And I guess must be so valuable for you as coaches, I guess, and for the players to know, if you get a cap for the senior team and then you don't get called up, it doesn't mean it's the end of your journey. Like, it's just another stepping stone.
Yeah, it's part of the journey, and nothing we do with these players is short term, right? It's all about a long-term evolution for them. They understand that. They understand that they will get highly competitive games against other nations who are also, competing on the world and European stage. And like you say, I think it's an opportunity for them to experience international football, because it is intense, it is quick. You do get a level of tournament conditions that are different to being at your club on a day-to-day basis. So try to prime them for what that is like and how they can best prepare and manage themselves in those environments is hugely important as part of their development.
For you, what has the transition been like into coaching?
Yeah, I think for me, if you'd asked me, even prior to being a professional player, if I'd be a professional player, I would have said no, because I thought I would be a journalist or a physio. But, that changed for me. So same with coaching. Did I think I'd go into coaching and experience this? No, I didn't actually. But so far, I've really enjoyed being on the grass with players, feeling part of a wider team of people, working with people is where I get my enjoyment and my energy. So I feel like that's the fun part. I think the other fun part is every now and then when I get roped into a session, I can remind some of these younger players that, I actually could play a bit and don't have two left feet. So that's partly part of the fun as well. But ultimately, I think it gives you new lenses to look at the game, to experience the game, to understand kind of all the moving parts that coaches and managers are operating within, both during matches and training and the preparation. The easiest thing I will ever have done is be a player, for sure.
I love that you can still humble a few players, just a little reminder. Something Viviane Miedema said recently as part of kind of her coaching journey was how important it was that players who've been involved in the game stay in the game, because, obviously when you're playing, you obviously have a big say in the game, you can make real changes, but it can be difficult, I guess, when you're playing to your focus to go elsewhere. And actually retaining players within the game is so important to its progress and to its success. So, having players like yourself still involved in whatever capacity that might be is really valuable, isn't it, for the growth and progress of women's football?
Yeah, I think it's really nice to see so many players as well, like Viv, exploring that side of the game, because I think as players, what you would have wanted for those of us that have come through sort of the amateur game through to the professional game, and what players need in order to perform at their best, feel at their best, and compete at the highest level. So we're in a privileged position to sort of challenge some of those developments and make sure that we keep cultivating the game in the right direction. And I think as coaches and managers, you have more influence and obviously power to really steer and shape things in the way and direction that we feel will really serve women within the game as a whole best.
Emma Hayes said about you when you retired, "She will remain one of my favourite human beings and players to have ever coached." What are the biggest lessons you learned from your playing days that you're now passing down to as part of your coaching journey?
Yeah, obviously I had amazing years playing for Emma, both at Arsenal and at Chelsea. She's been an unbelievable kind of pioneer for our game, but I think what I learned from her most is to never stand still, is to always try and evolve. As a coach, as a person, on and off the pitch, evolve your ideas. She really has led the way in that, I think, in terms of the women's game. And the thing I really learned, I think, across my playing career is that regardless of being a footballer, we're all just people at the end of the day, right? So understanding what kind of gets the best out of individuals makes the collective better. So really understanding them on a human level, just as people, what drives individuals, whether that be their family, whether that be their personal goals, whether that be whatever it is really important for developing individuals on and off the pitch. Because when they're happiest, they're most likely to deliver and deliver their best, which is what, as players, we want, and as coaches, you want to see.